researcher and I'm the workshop facilitator. I have Adrian Baker, who is online, the health and safety coordinator at Smart Ice. He can't hear us, so he'll just be doing his at Nunavut Emergency Management, and unfortunately didn't get a picture of him, but he's right here. So, I was tasked with working with Smart Ice on a health and safety document, and in the process I noticed that there was a gap in knowledge, specifically Indigenous knowledge, but also just local health and safety and ice issues. There's things like incidents, accidents, and near misses, falling through the ice, getting lost on the ice, extreme weather events, animal occurrences or encounters. Yeah, sorry, that's the word. Like polar bears or other wildlife, and environmental disasters like ice breaks and oil spills. So, environment and health and safety. Environmental issues affect health and safety in numerous ways. Ice thinning and melting can be attributed to climate change. The change in climate causes weather to behave differently, which can lead to things like stronger storms, periods of warmer and colder weather, and weather out of season. This affects everyday life for those in Nunavut beyond working on ice, and this can affect drinking water, hunting seasons, and increase health risks. And there will be a little more speaking of drinking water issues later on. Okay, next slide. Now this, if you've had a job or volunteered, you might have seen these. These are pictograms. They're general health and safety pictograms, and originally I had the idea to go through every single one, but I don't think that's necessarily needed. So I'll just go through them quickly, and you can read everything here, and I can send the slides after as well. So there's health hazards, which can be carcinogenic, flame, like flammables. The exclamation mark can be like an irritant. Gas cylinder is gases under pressure. Corrosion can be like skin corrosion or eye damage. Exploding bomb, pretty self-explanatory. Explosives. Flame over circle is oxidizers. Environment, which is not mandatory, is like aquatic toxicity, sorry. And then the skull and crossbones is acute toxicity.
It varies where they're stored, so if you're in a community and you're going to need, ask where these are, and you can sign these out for free, no charge. They're all set up. I actually just finished testing. I got to test the ones here, but they're available in every Nunavut community. Please take them. You can either use them for us to track you, or hit the SOS button, or just say I'm okay at this location. They're great to have. They're free, so please use them.
Thank you. So I have the next slide. Preparation and safety checklist. So the preparation and safety checklist can vary by company, obviously, and the work being done. So here are some examples. Checking that all workers have the necessary training to work on ice. Completion of an on-ice trip plan before any work is done. Safety bag and technology package checklist, which I will have next slide. And a PPE checklist, which is personal protective equipment. Oh, sorry. No, one before. Sorry about that. Safety bag checklist. I think it's... No, it's down, sorry. Yeah, there it is. Sorry about that. So I have a couple examples on the screen, but there's quite a bit more, so I'll just run through it quickly. So the safety bag has to have a 50-inch rope, axe. This is for Smart Ice specifically, but generally these are good things to have. So sorry, 50-inch rope, axe, 50 feet, yeah, okay, 50 inches isn't gonna help anyone. A backpack, CPR mask, emergency blanket, emergency candle, emergency whistle, obviously a first aid kit, very important to have, a flashlight, a float cast, which is used if someone falls through the ice, a folding saw, which has multiple uses, ice pick, multi-tool, protein bars, reflective vest, a sewing kit, small dry bag to keep smaller items in, protein bars, reflective vest, a sewing kit, small dry bag to keep smaller items in, a tarp, and a tourniquet. Oh, sorry, also waterproof matches and 24-inch bungee cord. Sorry about that. There was a second page. On to the next one, please. For the technology package, which is also included but slightly separate, there needs to be a battery pack or a charging pack to charge different pieces of equipment in an emergency, a thermal bag for the battery pack to keep the battery pack warm. Smart Ice has emergency GPS called Garmin, so that's what they use, and they use the walkie-talkie radio, which is just for communications between operators. They also need a wall charger or a block to charge the Garmin and the radio. Okay, so like I said before, PPE, personal protective equipment. Where a hazard cannot be otherwise controlled, employers shall ensure that employees have the appropriate CSA-approved personal protective equipment, PPE, and that the equipment is being worn properly, and that people are trained to use said equipment. So these can include footwear, gloves, eye protection like goggles, head protection like helmet, hearing protection, high visibility clothing, etc. And the employers have to ensure adequate safety precautions are in place, so to avoid injury or damage. And next slide, please. Now, the health and safety document that I'm working on for Smart Ice is to showcase their health and safety journey thus far. And it shows the incidents they have had and how they have learned and developed from them. And I will now pass it to Adrian, who is the health and safety coordinator at Smart Ice, and he'll tell you a bit more about that. Now, I'll message you.
Hello, my name is Adrian Baker. I'm the operations lead for occupational health and safety at Smart Ice Monitoring and Information. I'm also the training lead for the Iqaluit and Nunavut regions. Smart Ice does both saltwater and freshwater ice monitoring in northern and indigenous communities across Canada. Big part of what we do is work with local operators in communities to collect ice measurements and monitor changing ice conditions. We do it to support safer travel on the ice. We do it by using equipment to do ice thickness monitoring, and we combine technology with local knowledge. Travel on the ice can become dangerous very quickly because conditions can change fast and often with little warning. Severe weather can move in quickly and reduce visibility, making travel and communication more difficult. We also work in remote environments where communities, resources, and support can be far away. Emergency response is not immediate in these environments and can take hours to reach people depending on location and conditions. Because of that, preparation, communication, decision-making become critical parts of staying safe on the ice. Preparation before travel is one of the most important parts of staying safe on the ice. Most trips are planned to be a few hours, not multiple days, which means there's a higher chance of not having everything you need if conditions change. Unexpectedly, that makes preparation critical before leaving. Communication during operations is equally important. If people stop communicating while on the ice, situations can develop without others knowing something has gone wrong. Decision making should involve the group. Everyone on the ice has information and experience that can help make better decisions and reduce risk. Carrying the right emergency equipment is also part of the preparation that helps teams respond if conditions change or something unexpected happens. And finally, people need to know how to stop operations. One thing I've learned working with local indigenous operations is that experience on the land and on the ice often helps people recognize when conditions are changing and when it's time to turn around before the situation gets worse. Even with preparation and good decision making, situations can still happen. In early 2026, we had 3 employees in Mid-Metlink or Pond Inlet conducting research on the ice. The group was traveling using 2 skidoos, which met our minimum requirement for 2 skidoos and 2 people to travel on the ice. When returning from their work, one of the skidoos carrying the 2 employees broke down. At the time, we had no formal procedure for handling this type of situation. The employees stayed on the ice, discussed their options together. They decided that the local employee who had the most experience traveling in the area would return to community and come back with additional skidoos and support. Each employee had a communication device, GPS device, and a safety bag with them during the incident. Fortunately, they were relatively close to the community, and the employee was returned to help in a reasonable amount of time. Once everyone returned safely, the incident was reported to me, and we conducted an investigation and reviewed the situation as a team. We also discussed the situation with people more experienced in search and rescue and local knowledge holders. The general conclusion was that based on the conditions, equipment available, and information at the time, the employees made a reasonable decision. We treated it as a near miss because the outcome could have been much more serious if communication, preparation, and decision making had broke down. There were several important lessons learned from this near miss. One of the biggest takeaways was that communication mattered. The employees stayed connected and continued communicating while making decisions, which helped keep the situation controlled. Another major lesson was that the group discussion was critical. Rather than reacting quickly or making individual decisions, the team stopped, discussed their options, and made a decision together. Local knowledge also played an important role. The decision to have the local employee return to help came from experience and understanding the area and conditions. We also identified that some of our procedures had gaps. At the time, we did not have guidance for this type of situation, so it became clear that improvements were needed. As a result, new procedures and processes were developed shortly afterward to provide better guidance for future operations. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about a serious incident we experienced at Smart Ice. This is the only serious incident we've had to date. In early 2025, we were running operator training in Labrador. Training followed our normal format, classroom sessions first, followed by field work on the ice using equipment in real conditions. On this day, there were 3 trainees and 1 trainer, each traveling on their own skidoo. 1 trainee was towing our equipment at the front of the group, followed by the trainer and the remaining 2 trainees behind. Before leaving, conditions were reviewed as a group. It was snowing lightly, and as we normally do, the decision to travel considered both local experience and comfort with the conditions before heading out. While traveling on the ice, conditions started to change. Snow increased, visibility became worse until whiteout conditions started to develop. Trainer signaled for the group to stop so they could regroup and reassess the conditions. Most of the group stopped, but the front trainee pulling the equipment did not realize the group had stopped and continued forward into the snow until visual contact was lost. Trainer instructed the remaining trainees to stay where they were and attempted a short search for the missing trainee. After only a few minutes, the trainer returned, but the remaining trainees had already left to return to the training space. At that point, the trainer returned to the community and immediately contacted RCMP to initiate search and rescue. Local search and rescue teams responded quickly, and additional search resources were deployed overnight. Despite extensive searching, the trainee was not located that evening. Following morning, the trainee was found after crashing the skidoo. He had stayed with the machine overnight and later reached a nearby cabin when the conditions improved enough to see the cabin. He suffered some serious injuries, including a broken collarbone, severe frostbite to his feet. He was evacuated for medical care and spent months recovering from the incident. Following that incident, Workplaces NL workplace a stop work order on Smart Ice operations in Newfoundland and Labrador until corrective actions were completed. Smart Ice worked with Workplace NL to review operations, strengthen procedures, improve communication planning, and implement additional safety controls before operations resumed. There were a lot of lessons learned from this incident, and it revealed gaps in our systems that we had not seen before. One of the biggest lessons was how quickly the weather and visibility can change on the ice. We've never experienced those conditions changing that quickly during operations, and it reinforced how important it is to continuously reassess conditions while traveling. We learned how quickly separation can become dangerous. Once communication and visual contact are lost, situations can escalate very fast. This incident led to major changes in how we operate. We introduced new procedures, new communications plan, new trip planning requirements, and additional controls for on-ice work. We introduced two-way radios as a standard communication equipment during on-ice operations to improve communication and coordination between operators. We realized we had made assumptions during training. Some expectations and procedures that experienced staff understood were not always clear to trainees. So training was updated to provide more structure and clearer expectations. Finally, this incident reinforced something that was true across safety in general. Real incidents often reveal gaps that are difficult to identify ahead of time. Although this incident was very unfortunate, it helped us to improve emergency preparedness, strengthen our safety systems, and make meaningful changes to support safer operations moving forward. Several operation changes came directly from this incident. One of the biggest changes was creating a formal communication plan. Everyone's now trained in how to use the radios, how to communicate between operators, and how to follow emergency communication procedures. We also made major changes to our equipment requirements. Previously, equipment such as safety bags and GPS devices were shared across the group. Today, every person on the ice with Smart Ice carries their own GPS device, their own communication equipment, and their own personal safety bag. Another major improvement was the creation of a formal trip plan process. Before travel begins, information is documented that can support emergency response if needed. This includes where people are going, when they're expected back, equipment details, emergency information, and other personal information that could support search and rescue. We now actively monitor trips while people are on the ice. Internal monitoring takes place from the office, and we continue to look for additional ways to improve monitoring and support in the future. We also improved our safety bag contents. Based on what we learned, additional emergency equipment was added to better support shelter, survival, and preparedness while operating on the ice. All of these changes came from identifying small gaps before they became bigger problems. That's what safety is: continuously learning, adapting, and improving so people can work safely and return home safely. Preparation, communication, experience, and adaptability are critical to safe operations on the ice. The incidents I shared today showed that even with preparation, situations can still happen. But they also showed how communication, local knowledge, and learning from experience can help improve safety over time.
Incidents happen, and that's the time of the year that change happens really fast. Or Smart Ice had mentioned, you can go from a completely beautiful day, and then 10 minutes later you can't see your hand in front of your face. So preparation is very important when you're going out on the ice, local knowledge, all of that stuff that Smart Ice is talking about, sharing good information. And as somebody that's followed through the ice before and survived, that I can tell you from experience, it's good to know. It's very hard to swim when you're fully dressed up in winter gear. I had to swim about 40 feet. It seemed like an eternity. I didn't think I was going to make it, but I had my buddy. He was smart enough and remained calm enough that he gathered some rope and threw me one of those rope packages that we're talking about earlier. Those things save lives. They're very important to have. It's a cheap piece of equipment. It's just a rope bag. So having all of the equipment that they mentioned here, very important. That's a good list that they have put together. I really like that. Using apps like Smart Ice and Seafood nowadays really helps a lot. I'm 45 years old. I've been hunting since I was 4. I've been a ranger for 27 years. And we didn't have this stuff back then. It was just, communicating with other hunters that went to these places, and sometimes it would be days or weeks later. But nowadays, everything is started out. I can talk to anybody in the world from anywhere in the world. real time. So the technology available nowadays is amazing. I mentioned spot devices earlier. Those Nunavut emergency management supply each community with X amount of devices. So if you are going out, please, put those to use. That takes the search out of the rescue and really increases rescue time if and when someone needs rescued. Because let's face it, accidents happen, things happen, and we're in a very austere environment. So speed is key, and everything that you guys can do to make things easier for search and rescue to get to you, it's a better chance for your survival and a better chance for us to get you. Because we need experts to come in. Sometimes it's very dangerous situations, so we're lucky to have a huge, across the globe, it's a huge number of very dedicated and experienced people to go out and look for people that are lost. All these people, there are different kind of folks that voluntarily do this. It's very demanding and it's very stressful at times, but probably one of the most rewarding jobs out there. It's one of the few jobs that deal with death almost sadly on a regular basis, like compared to other office jobs where nobody really dies other than old age or an accident. But yeah, safety and preparation is a huge thing nowadays. We get a lot of young hunters going out thinking that, I've known a few things, I'll be okay. I got a good machine, I got a good sled. And then the weather hits them with, just a series of unfortunate events hits them and they get into a very unwanted situation that they can't really get out of on their own. So we get the call at search and rescue. I actually got the call about the one Adrian was talking about here in Pond Inlet. I was on call at that time, and I called the aircraft. And it was Greenland. So I was on that call from start to the end. So once in a while I get very little sleep on running the search that those multi-day search and multi-organization search. Because I work with a lot of companies across Canada. We work with Sequel, RCMP, we work with GTFN, the Hercules down south, we work with a lot of different companies in Canada, and recently we're working a lot more together because we realized that we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to reduce these accidents across Canada, trying to reduce search and rescue. And we realized a lot of us are duplicating work. So now we're working together so that we're not duplicating things and we're combining our efforts, which is becoming great for all of us because what's the point of doing something if someone else does it or someone else has a better idea. Let's all work together because at the end we're all going after the same thing. So I'm really happy that my job has actually brought all of these companies together a lot more often, along with a few very dedicated people. Right across Canada, there's a lot of people that work very hard to reduce accidents and incidents. And nowadays, it's not like 40 years ago where it's like clockwork. I see it now for second, third week of May, it was the freeze. Early October, elders redeemed by clockwork. Now it's so unpredictable. Global warming, ice is forming later, melting a lot sooner, and melting very fast. It used to take a few weeks to go from winter to spring. I've seen it go from 2 days, 2 crazy days of high wind, rain, the snow just disappears. And I had calls, search and rescue calls, hunters going up one day, they leave home, the land is covered with snow, it's cold out, they go to bed, they hear a storm during the night, they wake up, the snow is gone, rivers are running, just literally overnight. They just finished crossing the rivers to get to that place, they wake up, it's a completely different world. It's just totally. So nowadays things happen so fast. So being prepared, put on ice is very important. You got so many things available nowadays where you see through social media. There's a lot on social media. People post things like, hey, there's open water here, be careful on here. So knowing where to look and asking locals for their knowledge is key. They grew up around the area, they know what to expect, where to go, where not to go. So being prepared, very important. And it makes my job a lot easier, having all your trip plans filled out and everything. Because I'll tell you, I've had a few cases where we knew absolutely nothing. My wife would call, my husband left 2 days ago, we were supposed to come back yesterday. Okay, where did he go? I don't know, he said he was just going hunting. Okay, what was he going hunting? I'm sorry, I just said he was going hunting. So that's where we get the elder knowledge, and they brought a lot of life experience. They'll actually go to that person's house, look outside his house and ask the wife, okay, where was he parked? Where did he leave from? They'll go to these tracks and check them out. There's, you can tell a lot from a track, even a snowmobile track. There's a lot of different snowmobiles out there. If you know what to look for, you can find that person's particular track. So it takes experience to be able to spot those things, but I used to be surprised from a local elder. You know, you were over here a couple days ago, I guess. So, yeah, how did you go? Oh, I saw your track. When I was younger at the time, it's like, how do you know it's mine? It's the same as his and yours and another guy. So, no. I know you. You got a wide track. You got big skis. You got a wide sled. You saw your track. I know you choose not to. I saw your spit every 2 or 3 miles. So these are very observant people. They observe everything, the minute details like that. They put that into their brain and keep it there. So local knowledge is very important. If you're going to be working on ice, these locals, their expertise, they've been out there their entire life. And that's just what they do.
I'm working with the government of Nunavut in the climate change secretariat sector. And I recently did this presentation, and it's all about safe drinking water. And as we have been observing, our relationship with Canada has been fluctuating, and more relations are getting stronger, but it's important to know where we came from so we know how to move forward together. And so the ability for Indigenous people to be able to access safe drinking water is still a pressing matter to this day. A lot of boil water advisories are still here, not only just for Indigenous people, but it is also really recommended if you go get water from the river to boil it, just so that any parasites can not affect you. So just things like that are very good to know. If ever you want to go get your own water, or if ever your water at home isn't safe anymore to drink for any reason, you can go to the river, making sure that the water is running. A lot of people use aqua tabs. They're chlorine, and it helps if there's any feces that came through. It can help cleanse and purify, and then if you boil it for a minute, the chlorine can evaporate and it can kill parasites. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Climate change and its impacts on drinking water. Climate change very much impacts the amount and how people are able to interact with their drinking water, especially within this context where we get a lot of our water from the Hammons. Reduce ice cover, increase exposure to solar radiation, reduce resource development like mining, as well as inadequate infrastructure, this results to cultural immersion. And it's very important to be able to invest in our infrastructure and to make sure that Nunavut Youth don't have to boil their water. And there's proper filtration accessible for everyone to access safe drinking water, because Canada, we carry quite a bit of this world's fresh drinking water, and so it's going to be our responsibility collectively to decide how we're going to move forward building water pipelines. There's oil pipelines all the way across Canada. We can create water pipelines to get to the Indigenous communities, to all communities, so we will have safe water. And when we're talking about other communities accessing water in Nunavut, there are the sea level rising because of climate change. And when the sea level rises and goes into our drinking water systems, that can be dangerous. So certain technologies and tools like reverse osmosis that can take some water and make it into fresh water, very, very good to have, and maybe even have prepared, have a few ready in case something like that does happen in another community. Okay. Yes, so Arctic sovereignty is connected to our ability to access safe drinking water and distribute safe drinking water, as well as being able to collaborate with our ongoing, that's like a Mohawk term for Indigenous people, to be able to help each other to get safe drinking water, because everyone deserves safe drinking water. Yes, and then reintegrating Indigenous-led land stewardship. We all receive from this Nuna, we all receive from the water, and it's good to know what's in our water, within just sediments in general, but also in the microscopic way, like lens. If we look at our water through a microscope, what's in our water? How does it affect us? These are very important questions to ask ourselves before we consume our water. And so continuously observing the land and the Nuna is part of Inuit Hoi so that we can properly protect our community members. And so continuously collaborating to let our Inuhatik or our community members, as I said, know is amazing. Okay.
But it was an awesome experience. My stepdad's skidoo broke down on the way back, so it took us quite a bit to get back, but eventually we kind of hobbled our way back home. But yeah, having done it myself, having had that one experience, it was amazing, and I encourage everyone who hasn't been on the ice to go on the ice at least once. It is fantastic. Now on to this slide. These are just some resources that I was able to come together. The CQF, which you might have heard a couple of times, it is an Indigenous knowledge app and a tool developed by the Arctic Ider Society. It was created on an ongoing basis by and for Indigenous communities to empower Indigenous-led research and monitoring. I'm hopeful to use it in future research. And then Minga is a mental health resource, an emergency service, and it allows you to choose different services, including healing by talking, medical, travel, social services, and much more, so it's an important resource. I also put on one of the grants I received to do this project, to the Crusoe micro grants, as well as the GLOCAL Foundation, which I didn't put because that's why we're all here today, is they're also an important resource for projects like this. I have